Hi guys, welcome back to today's Q&A episode. I missed one episode a few weeks ago because my mother passed away the week prior to that, so I was way too busy to film a video and edit it on time for that Friday. And I also want to thank you guys for sending your sympathies about my mother passing away. We also had a major storm a few weeks ago. Big trees came down and we had no power here for 2 days. Fortunately, I had my generator to keep power in the house, but I got swamped in generator repairs, so that really put me back. So what I'm going to do today is talk a bit about generators and tips that may help you so that when the storm comes, your generator is going to start. As you can see, I've got quite a few generators in the shop here. I had way more than this. What I tried to do is fix generators on a priority basis, so if people had no power, I tried to get theirs going right away. The most common issue when people came in for generator problems were that they wouldn't start. Another problem on generators were broken recoils. As you can see, there's another one here. When it came to recoil problems, it was mostly on generators that are clones of other brand name engines. For example, this is a Honda clone. This is made by a Chinese company. It's not made by Honda, although the parts are interchangeable. Often people would come in with broken pull cords, and also the starter spring inside would snap. What you can do is a bit of preemptive repairs. You can check your pull cord when there isn't a storm going on and make sure it's not frayed. If it is frayed, get it replaced because you don't want it to break when you actually need the generator. Of all the generators that came in, I did not have one recoil problem on a generator with a brand name engine. It was only on the Chinese clone engines that I had recoil problems. And the other common problem I was getting were carburetor issues. The reason for that is because people don't use their generators that often, and often they don't start them in between storms, and when they go to use it when there's a major storm, they won't go. So the common remedy for this was to just clean the carburetor because it was all gummed up. What I'll recommend to you guys today is start your generator at least once a month if you don't want any issues. Make sure you use fuel in your generator that has no ethanol. I know here in Canada that Canadian Tire and Shell, their 91 octane does not have ethanol from the research I've done. Also, make sure to turn the fuel shutoff valve before you put it away. Run the engine dry until there's no fuel left in the carburetor. Even after it stalls, pull the choke, it will start again, and it will burn the remaining bits of fuel left in the carb. This will greatly reduce the odds that your generator will not start when there's a major storm. It's going to keep your carburetor nice and clean. And you can also put fuel stabilizer in the fuel tank as well. And another tip you can do is drain the gas after 6 months. If you've had fuel stabilizer in it, you can either dispose of the fuel or use it in your car, that's up to you, and put fresh gas back into the fuel tank. Also, another common problem on the Asian generators are the fuel petcock valves here. I found that a lot of them, that the little lever here broke off, or the fuel would not flow through the valve even though it was in the on position. So I ended up replacing quite a few of these shutoff valves. And by the way, a good place to get these valves is on eBay. Just go in the search box and type in generator fuel shutoff valve. And if you look at the shroud of this engine here, they've gone as far as putting GX390, which is actually a Honda model number. I actually had a customer one time with the same generator as this, and he actually thought it was a Honda. As you can see, I've got the head off this engine, and on this engine the exhaustive valve guide was starting to come out of the head. As you can see, it's way up. It should be down like this, and the valve seal is also missing as well. As you can see here, the valve is all bent. Now, I haven't seen these kinds of problems on brand name engines during my last wave of generator repairs, so that kind of tells you something. If you spend $200 less to buy a cheaper generator and you end up with problems like this, in the end it's actually costing you more than if you forked out the money in the first place to get a brand name engine on your generator. And another common issue that I get on the import generators is that the capacitors blow on them. On these brushless generators, there's a capacitor in here. If they let go, then your generator is not going to produce electricity anymore. I got a few generators in like that. They didn't make any more power, and by the time you locate a capacitor or try to order one, the power is back on in your house. So before you buy a generator, do your research. You can ask some informed people that work in the store you're buying it. Ask them if they've had any returns on them. If they haven't had any returns, that gives you a good idea that they're a problem-free generator. My next question today is in regards to the Stihl MS170 and MS180C chainsaw like this. I had previously made a video on this saw when I upgraded the bar and chain from a 43 gauge bar and chain to a 50 gauge bar and chain. This chain is much wider than the 43 gauge chain, and the links are much beefier, it's much stronger. You'll notice on your saw when you bought it that the chain is much thinner and the teeth are a lot smaller. So the question I received about this is, do you find that the beefier bar and chain makes the saw bog down when you cut wood? Well, my answer to that is no. If you followed the instructions in my video and upgraded exactly as I did, you're going to find that it's much better. The chain stays sharper a lot longer and it just works better. What I'll do is put the link to that video under the video today so you can go watch it and get the part numbers in case you want to do the same to your saw. And here's a quick update on the shed. I've got the boards on. I'm actually going to try and make a video as to how it's built. Here's the other side. And on the shed here, the boards go right up to the top so no animals can get into the shed. It's not cheap, but I'll be glad it's done. This summer I've been getting a lot of questions on the Briggs and Stratton Intek V-twin engines on lawn tractors. Like this engine over here. And again, it's an overhead valve engine. People are telling me after the engine warms up, it starts to backfire, doesn't run right, and sometimes it's hard to start or won't start. If you have the same symptoms that I just mentioned, get the valve lash checked. Sometimes the valve lash gets too large and the engine won't run properly. Sometimes even after having the tractor for 1 year, you're going to have to get the valves adjusted. I've seen tractors 1 year old that needed the valves adjusted, and I've seen some that are 6 years old and never have had the valves adjusted. So it all depends on the wear and tear, how it was adjusted at the factory, the quality of the metal used, etc. It's a bit hard to tell why some engines need the valves adjusted sooner than others. If you have a manual, check it out. It may tell you when to get it serviced. When you get it serviced, you can ask your mechanic to check the valve lash for you. They're good engines, but if you have somebody that's looking at your engine and they don't know what they're looking for, they may end up replacing parts that you don't need. If the valves are out of adjustment, some people may think I need a new ignition module when actually you don't. This summer I've had a lot of questions about pressure washers as well. Some people ask me, why isn't there any more pressure in my pump? Well, that could be because the pump has gotten some dirt in it, it's damaged inside. So if that happens, it's not going to produce the same pressure that it used to. It could also be that somebody ran the pressure washer without any water circulating through the pump, thus damaging the little pistons and seals inside. This is part of the pump that came off this rigid pressure washer here, and when I took it off, it smelled burnt. When you're using your pressure washer, you should keep the water flowing through it. So basically, if the engine's running, you should always have your hand on the trigger so the water can flow through the gun and the pump. Even though you have the hose connected to your pump and it's running, but you're not using the gun, but you're doing something else in between, it is harmful to your pump. If you read the manual on your pressure washer, it should tell you to avoid that habit. The other thing I find too is people buy smaller pressure washers or non-commercial pressure washers and use them for commercial use, and then they wonder why the pump's burnt out. The homeowner pressure washers aren't built to stuff as commercial ones, so don't be surprised if they don't last as long. If you don't use a pressure washer that often, what I recommend to you is to just go rent one. By renting one, you don't need to worry about leaving old gas in it. It's going to start. If the pump blows, then it's not really your problem unless you've neglected it during use. And like I've mentioned in some Q&As before, when I get a pressure washer with a blown pump, I don't bother fixing the pump itself, I just replace it completely. Here's a Briggs opposed twin cylinder engine on a lawn tractor. This tractor came in and it was misfiring. The spark on both plugs was intermittent, so basically you'd get spark for a while and then you wouldn't, or would run on one and not the other. So basically in this case I'm just going to replace the ignition module over here. On this engine here there's only one coil and it feeds both spark plugs. And by the way, it's part number 590781 from Briggs and Stratton. I'll put a link to where you can buy a coil like this directly online. You can also check out discount online parts for all your small engine parts as well. Before I end off the video today, I just want to show you this McCulloch Timber Bear chainsaw that came in. And here's the model and serial numbers. It would be a nice big saw, but it's got no spark at the spark plug, so it would need an ignition module. I think I saw some on eBay, but they're fairly expensive. If you guys know where I can get one cheaper, just let me know. Also, if you own a saw like this, please comment underneath so we can all know what your experiences have been with this saw, whether you like it or not. So that'll be it for today's Q&A video. Thanks for taking the time today to come and watch it. I also appreciate all your comments under the videos. I may not always have time to answer each question. I try my best to do so. But if you see questions that are unanswered and you know the answer, please help out the other YouTubers and answer the questions. And hopefully you guys are having a great summer and have yourselves a great weekend as well.